Welcome to the Bjorn Identity. This is episode 6. My name is Bjorn, National Director and one of the owners of Corporate Connections in Canada, and the Bjorn Identity is fueled by Corporate Connections Canada. What is Corporate Connections? We're an arena where leaders can connect from around the world, empowering them to create opportunities, meaningful change in their organization, community, and lives. Our proven structure results in our members sharing opportunities for business growth, strategic alliances, joint ventures, and the co-creation of new enterprises. Our members are consistently collaborating to move business forward. And again, I'm very, very fortunate to have a good buddy of mine and our global president of Corporate Connections, the man who started Corporate Connections here in Montreal about 15 years ago with myself. He went from one of our mainstays, our strongest director, to the big boss now, my boss, Gervais. Welcome. I have to watch my P's and Q's today.
You all heard that. We've got that recorded. That's good. It's great to be here, Kai. Thanks for having me back, and excited to share some ideas and talk about being a connector.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea. As our conversations are around sort of corporate connections and those skill sets that Corporate Connections teaches us, helps us hone. And today it's about being a connector. And so, to you, what is a connector?
It's an interesting thing. I remember someone telling me this years ago, and they said, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And I think ultimately when you are a connector, you're someone who invests in building long-term relationships that are based on trust. So that when those opportunities come up, and they come up all over the place. This weekend, I was at a hockey game for my 10-year-old, and I started talking to one of the gentlemen there who been going to games together, 15, 20 games in the past year. And I found out that he is one of the largest producers of paintballs in the world.
There you go.
And I said, oh, well, where are you looking to expand to? And we started talking about the APAC region. And right away, I was able to think of 3-4 people that I could connect him to. So I think when you have that stable of connections and you've taken the time to know their business, their needs, then you become a connector. So it's about knowing a lot of people, knowing how you can help them, and then taking that extra step to listen and connect them when that opportunity comes out.
Yeah, you know what? It's having relationships, solid relationships with people. And
that was a much more efficient answer.
Yes, but being a connector, to me, it's also interesting. It's that go-to person.
Yeah.
It's a resource, and I always found it interesting, and this is something Corporate Connections has really instilled in myself and with our membership is it's great to connect people. Traditionally, we sit in our verticals, and anything outside our verticals, noise.
Yeah.
And then you ask that question, why? What's in it for me? And being a true connector is selfless, and at the same point, there's a heck of a lot in it for you when you're able to stimulate your marketplace, because people know people. And we go to work 9 to 5, we do what we do, we grind it. The majority of the phone calls we have are industry specific. But like you said, man, when you look at your network, as Dunbar says, you have 250 people in your network. There's a large majority of those people that aren't in your business vertical, but then again have access to people you want to meet.
Yeah.
I'm not in finance. I'm not in legal, yet I tend to, through my sailing, if you have a boat, you have disposable income. We tend to have a lot of lawyers, finance, sort of that high net worth arena of people that I have the pleasure of getting to know. And through these conversations, I'm able to detect opportunities for them vis-a-vis my network. And being that connector, it keeps me top of mind. We talked about that in the last podcast we did in the thank yous, top of mind.
Yeah.
And so that is the art of being a true, strong connector. So go through a couple of the points that we put down. Why making connections in the business world is important.
Yeah, I think one of the key reasons, and this is the fun part of being a connector, is you discover all sorts of opportunities that you would not have had otherwise. So if I'm being really narrow in my focus and I'm looking for this specific opportunity and I'm sort of lasered in on that, that might be all I get. But if I'm connecting people, one of the things that comes up repeatedly, and this happens, so we're franchise-based across the globe, and I was talking to one of our master franchisors recently, and I said, why did you choose to invest in this business? And he said, he goes, that's a great question, because I talked to a couple buddies, including another one of the master franchisors, and he said, we could have done this without corporate connections. But then we realized it's an established brand, it's around the world, and at this point in our lives, we want to meet great people to discover opportunities that we don't even know about. So often when you're a connector, you're thinking that you're helping others, but it comes back that you get pulled into all these potential opportunities. You get first stab at it, and it just creates, I think, a level of pipeline for your own personal ambitions that you might have never thought of.
100%. One never knows where the greatest opportunity is going to come and poke its head up. And it's funny, the power of being a connector. Sitting in a restaurant with my wife, someone comes by our table, very, very successful individual, and sheepishly says hi and puts their hand out and shakes hands with me and thanks me and then says, oh, I don't want to disturb you, and leaves. And my wife's staring at me. Why the hell did that happen? I said, wow. It's all about the connections and the power of the connections. Like, she was basically saying, you do not warrant what just happened. Vis-a-vis the level of business I was in at that stage or what I was doing, but being a connector warrants that, and we become that go-to person. Gives us access to new opportunities, right? When we're connecting people, we're putting ourselves not in the middle of the opportunity, but we're part and parcel of it, and it can create some other opportunities for us. But it ignites those individuals thinking of me and now possibly connecting me for other opportunities.
Yeah, it was Charles Bronfman he was that's Seagram's, and he owned the Montreal Expos.
Yeah, we're global, Robert. We can't.
No, I know.
Stay,
so I got to mention
central
that.
to Montreal. No, but we're around the planet.
This is a guy who owned a Major League Baseball team.
There we go.
And I'm like 10, 11 years old, and I hear this guy say, "Hold up your elbow," and I can't, like, who's, and I recognized him right away, and I'm like, my God, that's Charles Bronfman. Like, this is the guy who owns the Montreal Expos, and I loved baseball, and I asked him a question, and I don't know what made me think of this. But I said, how do I turn Mr. Bronfman, because I know he'd done very well in life. I said, how do I make $100, $110? And he laughed and he said, kid, that's almost impossible. But if you have 100 million, it's almost inevitable that you make 110. And I was like, why? And he said, because you're going to meet so many people along the way. You're going to get so many opportunities, and you'll get the best opportunities. And not all of us have 100 million, but all of us can build a great network, and all of us can be a connector. And when you have that kind of network and you're the person who's in the middle of that network, you will get those opportunities. And at this point in my life, I'm not looking for another job, but I'm always open to passive income. So if I can find those opportunities, that's the hardest part. And by being a connector, they come to me. Yeah. I don't have to go look for them. So
100%.
It's a great benefit.
But like you said, it's a benefit. You're not chasing everything under the sun, but great opportunities come to good people, and good people are connected to others and have strong, solid relationships. And I think it's one of the most important pieces is that listening piece, so you actually understand what people are looking for. And that's a big piece of corporate connections. We get together on a regular cadence. We populate profiles on us and our business and our background. And you have a great story on that, which we'll come to in a second. But the more I understand and know of what you're looking for or wanting to get, the easier it is for me to detect opportunities, person and professional.
Yeah.
And so you have a great story with, I think it was Mr. Smolens, in regards to a large architectural opportunity. And even though you knew the two individuals intimately, both of them, there was no way for you to make the connection because
I tried.
The bigger fish said no.
Yeah, I tried for years. Every time I'd speak to him, and to the point where when I would call him, he would answer the phone and say, I don't want to meet your friend. And it was kind of a running joke right at this point. And one day I'm sitting down with Dimitri, and he was talking about how, and I didn't realize he had a number of adopted children. And this person had been trying to adopt someone for a couple of years. And the second I understood and I knew more about this person now personally, at a personal level, not just the business and the opportunity, I was like, I have to pick up the phone. And I call my buddy, and he goes, I don't want to meet your buddy. I said, hang on, I'm actually sitting here with him. It's not about business. I know you've been trying to adopt for a couple of years. This guy, and I think it's 5 adopted children. And he said, let me talk to him right away. Right now, he wanted to talk. He wanted to connect. And it's not that he didn't like the guy or didn't want to, he didn't want to be sold something. He didn't feel the need for that service. And I know they did some business. It took a while. It took probably about a year and a half. But the second you actually understand what people are going through at a deeper level, it's so easy to connect them for the right reasons.
And so that's knowledge, personal, professional knowledge, having that understanding and strengthen business relationships. To me, that's an important piece. And that comes from taking the time to learn about one another.
Yeah. Well, and look, but you just touched on it. I think that the whole knowledge and skill sharing piece of it is great. I'm in a forum group through Corporate Connections. And to have people who are in completely unrelated industries where I might never dive into the strategic challenges that I have in front of me otherwise with these people, but the format allows me to do it. And because, again, I'm a central part of that group, they're listening, they're sharing,
right on.
And I'm learning. And it's shortcuts. It's an accelerator, right? The second that, again, you got access to the right resources, the right people at the right time in the right way, and they have an interest in helping you, it's going to help accelerate wherever you're trying to get to.
You know what, Robert? Both of us have benefited immensely from our forum. So Corporate Connections is you have your core group of individuals, complementary businesses, 20, 25 people around the table. And then we have this subset, which are these smaller groups, these forums, which are experience-led, peer-to-peer experience-led, so that we're able to have these private domains with high levels of confidence, knowledge, and confidentiality. And so both of us were lucky enough to sell our businesses in the past little while. And I attribute it to my forum, having resources, having other people in other industries that had gone through the sales of an enterprise and were able to come back to me and sort of handhold me through a process, right? And that comes with a high level of relationship, a high level of understanding of what each person is doing. You're selling a business, okay, it doesn't mean I can help you, but when I start understanding and knowing what you do, how you do it, what you're about, what your goals are, as connectors, which is part and parcel of learning the art of connecting, you get these benefits where now people are able to come back and help you in kind in some other capacity.
Yeah. No, and it's fun because sometimes it's just about confirming what you already know. But we all question ourselves. So again, when you have that depth of relationship and you can ask real questions, it's amazing what comes out of it.
Yeah, and then as connectors, you have market visibility. People know a little bit more about you. When you're making a great connection, and I would call it tier 1, tier 2. Tier 1 being I'm in the same sort of vertical as you. It's collaborative. I know you need this. Tier 2 is I'm not in that vertical, yet I know somebody. And so having the techniques in place. So like you said earlier, I'm not selling you something. When you're talking about Dimitri, it's Robert, I know you're not in that space. I know you're not in that industry. Why are you calling me about it? Because I've detected an opportunity, personal, professional. I thought I would present it to you and see if you're interested, man.
Yeah.
And if you're not,
that's fine.
That's fine. So I that's the important piece to me, is that from a risk mitigation standpoint, don't put yourself out there. Present the opportunity. Don't deep dive. Let the experts talk about it. But I've detected an opportunity I think you might benefit from. Are you interested in finding out a little bit more about it?
Exactly.
Dot.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to oversell.
Yeah, you don't want to oversell, but that is always funny when I get a call from someone, "Hey man, you got to meet so and so." Yeah? "Oh yeah, man, it's just you have to. You got to come and set up." And I'm like, "Whoa. Why? Like, why the hell do I got to meet this person?"
Yeah.
Well, they're great, and okay, do your homework. I mean, one of the most interesting pieces was who's a lovely, lovely man, a member of Corporate Connections, Paolo DeVito, hotelier, great guy, giver, connector, etc. But the individual that kept trying to set me up kept saying, "You got to meet this guy. He's great." And for a golf tournament. You wish a golf tournament on your biggest enemy. The amount of work, the amount of effort to go and build a golf tournament. He kept saying that. And I'm like, yeah, no thanks. I've got my own golf tournament. Yeah, no thanks. And it was only at the end, out of frustration, that this individual said, listen, I know both of you, and you both are going to get along marvelously, and you're going to become great buddies. That's all I'm trying to do. Well, why didn't you say that at the front end? And so we ended up at a meeting. Now we own a motorboat together. Our families hang out together, and I'm still part of that golf tournament.
Yes.
I'm plotting it forward.
Right.
But it's
And
learning.
it's a great golf tournament, by the way.
It is a fantastic.
It really is.
Angelman.
Yeah, the Angelman Foundation.
.ca, ANGELAMAN.ca, the Angelman cause. It's a wonderful cause, and it's part of what we do at Corporate Connections. Every one of our groups has a cause. So we talk about community. We talk about collaboration. So community is peer-to-peer. Collaboration is what we're talking about now, being connectors, learning and understanding. But we also talk about cause. We should coin it the 3 C's of Corporate Connections. CC, Corporate Connections. Now the 3 C's.
I like it.
Hey, do I got to get that little R?
Yeah, you have to get that
at the back
registered
end?
and trademarked.
But and then about cause and doing that. And so being a connector, what makes a good connector, Robert?
So I look, we've talked about it a little bit, but you have to have that depth of network. So you need to know people. And often people will say, well, how do
When you say depth of network, is that depth of relationship?
So both. It's not. So yes, there's both, right? It's one thing to have 5,000 connections on your LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever social media you're on. That doesn't mean you know those people. So it's having that broad network, but you have to manage those relationships, and that takes time and effort. And there are a lot of ways to do it, by the way. It's not that hard. I remember when I was actively building my network when I was a little bit younger. Now I just try to really maintain it, and it now grows organically because of what I do for a living. But when I was actively trying to build it, often I had a list of people and the interests they had, and I would actually block time in my calendar to find information about specific interests. So if I knew there were a bunch of people I know who love golf, I would go find some interesting tidbits about golf, and out of the blue, I'd send them an email or a message saying, hey, I thought you might be interested to hear about this. And it was just constantly nurturing those relationships. You know, I always say, like, how many people can you call at 2 a.m. that'll take your call? You know, well, it's not. I mean, often
I'll take your call.
No, but well, thank you, Kai. I know you will. But I mean, often it's a handful, right? And that's the depth piece. So you can have a lot of people, but how deep do those relationships go? And if you can have both, you're gonna be a great connector. And of course, on top of that, though, you got to listen, as you've mentioned. You got to be able to listen to understand how you can help people. Because if just having a network is not good enough. Now it's how do I connect them together.
The importance of having a little bit of background, and it's just not commercial, I think is very, 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 very important. It's one thing to know the business and understand the business, but to me, that's that tier one I talked about. You know, that's the commercial connection. You know, and that's my day to day and my grind, and I throw it out there. But that tier two, I think, is so important. It's when we have that understanding, where you have that a little bit more insight, like you said, with an adoption. It's extremely difficult. It's extremely personal. The fact that you had someone there that was able to help, and I guarantee you, with that circumstance, Dimitri didn't try to sell him something.
No,
you know,
no,
we're not in it like that, and it's having that understanding. But there is a technique, man, and I come back to being a good connector. You have to put your right foot forward, explain, like, I'm bringing this up because this came across my desk and I thought it would be of interest to you.
Yes.
Yes, okay, let's proceed.
Yeah, and here's the value that I think you'll get from this.
100%.
It's
huge value.
People always have time for value. But I think one of the challenges, and I get asked this all the time, is how do you become a better connector? One of them is you have to be constantly building your network. And I had an important life lesson when I was pretty young. I was working in film, and I had the opportunity at an event. I saw Brian De Palma, the film director,
yep.
the big, you know. And so I went up to him and I started selling. I had a script. I started talking to him about it, and then I asked him for a business card, and he was very polite about it. Didn't really interact much. And he hands me a business card, and all it had on the card was his name. And I turn it over, and there's nothing else. And I go, Mr. De Palma, I'm not sure what to do with this. There's no contact information. And he goes, yeah, kid, there's probably a reason for that. And it was this kind of kick in the face where I realized I'd been selling myself. He wasn't interested in that. What he wanted to do was meet people there who were going to help him further whatever his agenda was and who were interested in for the right reasons.
Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
100%. But so I think...
But at the same time, flip it on its ear, and I love what you said. It's people love being supportive or being supported.
Yeah, but if I'd taken the time...
helping that individual plod forward.
Well, that's it. And
it's great to be gracious.
If I'd asked him questions...
Yeah.
He would have been much more engaged. He would have been, people love to share their expertise. So I always say, when you build a relationship, take it slow. Take the time to get to know someone. Don't rush it. A network doesn't get built overnight. It takes time. But if you build it with that kind of quality, that kind of mindset, you'll be amazed at how quickly that network will grow. And now all of a sudden, without even trying to, you are that connector at the center of it.
Yeah, and you know what? That's the interesting piece. We're not the end-all of be-all with corporate connections, but that an attestment to what we're building is, upwards of 90% retention. When our members, some people come in and it's transactional and they're looking to gain, and unfortunately it doesn't always pan out for them because they don't take the time to develop strong relationships and understanding and have people actually realize that I'm in it to support you. And just because I support you doesn't mean you have to bring something back to me. The collective team will. And what's also interesting is when we see our fellow members or people in our network are the go-to people, well, people talk about them and people gravitate towards them. And so there are steps and techniques to be able to become a better networker or a better connector, like you said. And I think that's a really important piece, that it's not going to happen overnight. It takes time. Build relationships, find out about people. But I love what you said with ask questions. Yeah, we all want, we all need, we're all thriving to plod forward. But at the same time, when we take the time to listen, take the time to understand these individuals better. And the easiest connection I ever had is when I have some personal insight into somebody. Because then I'm able to talk about them as a person, not as a transaction or a possibility, but a person. Here's why I'm connecting them. They're wonderful. Just like I said with DeVito, when the gentleman actually stopped and said he's a hell of a great guy. He's doing this. He has this charity. He doesn't even use the charity because he's successful enough that he has his own resources to support the child that he needs to take care of. But the respite center is there for others. At that point, I'm like, I feel like an ass.
Yeah, you have to help, right?
I feel like an ass not hooking up earlier. And so I ended up blaming it on the individual, saying,
But I think
he hadn't teed it up for me.
And I think you just touched on it. I think one of the interesting things, when you take an interest, so I'll give you an example. We all get invited to play golf at some point. But years ago, and this is, our good friend, Brian Edgar. So when I first met him, one of the first places we met was actually at a golf range, not a golf course. And we put together a small event, 6-8 people. I think we're probably 7 or 8 people. And hired an instructor, golf pro, had it catered, and said, instead of playing golf, why don't you come out? We're going to bring this guy that most of them knew who he was. I'm going to show us some tips and become better golfers and hopefully shave a couple strokes off our score. Very different from what they're used to. We're all together. It's not 4 of us. It's now 7, 8 of us. There's some good food, glass of wine after. We get to know each other. And then when they go play golf and they've improved their swing and their stroke and shave a couple points, they're thinking about that event and how you put it together and you stand out. But the first thing we had to know is, okay, who are they? What do they like? Who do we put together? In what context? There was no desire to create specific business opportunities. Those people stayed connected, and it led to things.
Good people like good people.
So being a connector, there's a lot of ways to do it, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but I think as you think about this, and I know you're doing this on a regular basis, there are a lot of tips and tricks. And actually, as a matter of fact, if you want to get a great book, the Jeffrey Gitomer, Little Black Book of Connections, it's got some great ideas in there. He's based out of Charlotte, where our head office is, and great guy. But it's kind of amazing how many ways you can help people. I think the idea is don't overextend yourself.
Yeah.
Stay within your limits.
Yeah.
Follow through on what you
Be
say
genuine.
you're going to do. And have fun.
Yeah, be genuine. And on that note, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the Bjorn Identity, fueled by corporate connections. But being a connector is an art, but it's a skill that can be learned. And if you're interested in visiting one of our Corporate Connections chapters here in Montreal, across Canada, or anywhere on this planet, it'd be our pleasure to be able to connect you. And you can come in and start the process of honing your skills on being a connector. Robert Gervais, thank you very much, as usual, for your time, effort, participation, and wonderful comments today. The Bjorn Identity, Kai Bjorn, thank you.